horizontal dashed line at each of these little like nubs that are coming out here. See there? There's like one there, there, and there. So this first one we need to make at about 1200. So go ahead and set up a line there. That's just going to set up our grid space. The next one is like just above the 2000, so it's here at the 2300 mark. The next one up is just under the 3000. It's at the 2800 mark. And then we just have one more. So up here, just under the 6000. That's at the 5800 mark. Okay, so you should have a grid space that looks somewhat like this. Now, whenever you're performing spirometry on a patient, what you're going to be doing is they're going to be breathing into this apparatus, and this thing is going to be measuring how much air is coming in and out of their lungs on each breath, and you're going to have them perform different types of breaths and different series of breaths. And the whole time, you're going to be charting the volume in milliliters on a grid space. So what we're going to draw is like a sample graph of what you would expect from someone's spirometry tests. Okay, so I just want to plot a sample graph that we can then label. So is everyone up to this point here? You need a second? Okay. So let's go ahead and just put a sample graph on. I'm going to start about a quarter of the way over, maybe a little less than a quarter of the way over. And we're going to just start it like this. See these paired lines? The bottom of one of these paired lines. Just go up and back down. A little parabola. Then take that line and continue it down to the next dash. And then you're going to bring it back up. So we're going to start off with that. Okay. And you want to leave some room at the end, so don't like make this take up the whole space, because we need to add labels to all this stuff. Then we're going to take it all the way up to the top. Then we're going to bring it all the way back down. To this bottom line. And then end from where you started. So just something kind of like this. Now what this represents again is different volumes of air coming in and out of the lungs. So you would have people taking different types of breaths to end up with this graph. You would then use like normal levels or healthy levels to compare their results to, and you can get a better idea of how well their lung function is. So there are a series of volumes and capacities that we are going to define here. And I would like to start with the volumes. So I'm going to do all the volumes in blue. You can use whatever color you want, or you can just keep it in pencil. It's completely up to you. But if we come over here, you'll see at the top it says there's 4 different respiratory volumes described. We're going to label each of those 4 volumes on this graph, and then after we do each one, we'll come up to the top and we'll define it. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is your residual volume, and that is just going to be down here at the bottom. So your residual volume goes from that bottom dashed line to all the way down to the x-axis. Residual. volume. Has anyone ever had the wind knocked out of them? Okay. So your residual volume is the amount of air that's in your lungs even after you've expired or breathed out or exhaled as much air as you possibly can. There's always a volume of air that's left. And that volume of air, it doesn't get cycled very often. It's way down deep in your lungs, way down in the deepest alveoli. And this air is going to have really low oxygen levels and really high carbon dioxide levels because whenever you're breathing, you can't typically cycle this air. So we call this dead air. It doesn't really help much with gas exchange at all, but what it does do is it keeps your lungs inflated. If you were to have the wind knocked out of you, then you'd be forcing your lungs more fluid. You'd be shutting out some of that residual volume just by compression. And it feels like you're going to die, like you're trying to reinflate. Yeah, it feels a lot worse than what it actually is, and then it very quickly subsides once you're able to reinflate your lungs. But that's your residual volume. I would have us practice that, but there's no way to get that out unless we all knock the wind out of each other, so we're not going to do that part. So these other volumes we'll practice, but we're not going to do that one. So go on up to the top. Residual volume is abbreviated RV. In an adult male, which is what all of these standard values were expressed in whenever I pulled this up, this is going to be 1,200 milliliters. It is slightly less in women just because typically they'll have smaller lungs. And this is the volume. I'm going to be using kind of caveman talk just to get the point across, but you can write this kind of however you want. But volume that remains in the lungs after. I'm doing max for maximal expiration. Expiration is exhaling. That is expiration. Okay, so that's volume number one. The next volume that we'll do is we'll stack right on, we'll just work our way up. So we'll stack right on top of the residual volume. So if you go back down here, oh, did you have enough time? You good? So volume remains lungs after max expiration. Okay. If we go back down here, the next one will be our expiratory reserve. So it is just from the top of your residual volume up to the bottom of these paired lines. Okay, so your expiratory reserve is going to be the amount of air that's left, or the amount of air that's left in your lungs that you can exhale, so it excludes the residual volume, after just a normal breath. So take a normal breath in, just like while you're sitting here, not a deep one, just like you normally do when you're sitting here. Normal breath out, and now breathe out as much air as you possibly can on top of that. And you'll feel all of your expiratory muscles contract, your abs contract, your intercostals contract, your shoulders will kind of hunch down. Okay? That is your expiratory reserve. After you've completed a breath where you've breathed out your expiratory reserve, the only thing that's left is your residual volume. So this is getting rid of as much air as you possibly can out of your lungs. So the expiratory reserve volume is the ERV. All of these are abbreviated exactly how you would expect them to be, which is rare and nice for a change. This is 1,100 milliliters, again, in an adult male. And this is going to be the volume able to be expired following a tidal expiration. And we will talk about what a tidal expiration is. So this is the volume of air that you're able to exhale after a tidal expiration. Let me clean up my handwriting here. That looks rough. All right. Good there? Okay, so next up we'll do the tidal volume. So tidal volume is really small. It's just right in between these two small lines. Tidal volume. Okay, so think of like the tides, where water comes in and out. Okay. Your tidal volume is just your normal, the normal volume of air that you'd inhale and exhale at rest whenever you're just sitting there going about your daily life. So you're not exercising, you're just at rest, resting heart rate, the amount of air you're breathing in and out. Don't even think about it. You're not taking some like big major exhale or inhale. So as we're sitting here, you are respiring with your tidal volume. So let's go ahead and add in what this would be. Tidal volume is your TV. It is only about 500 milliliters. Which is not much. An adult male lung can hold about 6 liters or 6,000 milliliters of air. So on a normal basis, you're only ventilating about 500 mils, so very low percentage of your total capacity. Okay. Your tidal volume, we will say it is the volume inspired. I'll try to use as much vocabulary as possible. And expired at rest. So just your normal inhale and exhale. Nothing crazy. Okay, and then the last volume, you can probably project where it's going to be. It is going to be from the top of the tidal volume all the way up. And this is going to be called your inspiratory reserve volume. Okay. Your inspiratory reserve is going to be the amount of air you can inhale after a tidal inhale. So you're sitting here breathing normally, and then you inhale as much as you possibly can on top of that. That extra is your inspiratory reserve volume. Okay? So this is going to be the IRV. It is about 3,000 mils. So you have a lot more lung capacity than what you normally would use. This is the volume able to be inspired following a tidal inspiration. So it is just the opposite of the expiratory reserve. And the words kind of make sense. Inspiratory reserve is the amount of volume in reserve that you can inhale past what you would just normally inhale. Okay. Now, these volumes are used to make capacities, and capacities are going to be combinations of these volumes. So we're going to see 2 or more volumes used to form these capacities. All right, so I'm going to go to the other side now of the graph to plot our capacities. Okay. The first one we'll do is just the whole thing. So if you go from the very top all the way down to the bottom, this is going to be your total lung capacity. Total lung capacity is exactly what it says. How much air can your lungs hold? So if you take the biggest breath you got, you would be using your total lung capacity. Okay. So let's go ahead and define what this would be then. Your total lung capacity is the TLC. On average, about 5,800 milliliters, so around 6,000 milliliters, around 6 liters or so. This is the total volume of air able to be held in the lungs. And for each of these capacities, we'll go ahead and put like how it's calculated. So here we would have the TLC, the total lung capacity, is equal to the VC, which is vital capacity. We'll do that one next, so you'll know what that is, plus the respiratory, or plus the residual volume, the RV. So vital capacity plus residual volume. Yep. Mm-hmm. So now we just need to get the vital capacity on there. Residual volume. So I'm going to be using the abbreviations, but by the time we're done, all of these will have an abbreviation assigned to them, so you'll be able to reference it pretty easily. Okay, next is going to be, if we come back down to our graph, we'll do the vital capacity. This is going from this bottom line, so like our bottom dashed line, to where the top line is. Vital capacity. I ran myself out of room. But that says capacity. So vital capacity here. If you look at like just what part of the graph it's covering, what do you think the vital capacity is? So it's the amount of air you're actually capable of moving, right? You can't do anything with your residual volume. The vital capacity is going to be the maximum inhale followed by the maximum exhale. Okay. So vital capacity, if we go here, it is the VC. It's about 4,600 milliliters. These volumes are all based on a total lung capacity of 5,800, so it's going to vary depending on the size of the person's lungs. But these are averages. So this is the max air able to be expired following a maximal inspiration. So how much air can you get out after you've brought in as much air as you possibly can? That's going to be your vital capacity. Or another way to look at it is after you've taken the biggest breath possible, how much air is in your lungs minus your residual volume, so minus what you would have started with. Okay. So the way that we calculate this then is going to be for our vital capacity, VC is equal to TV, so your tidal volume, plus your IRV, your inspiratory reserve, plus your ERV, your expiratory reserve. So that section right there. Tidal plus IV plus EV. All right, 2 left. Almost there. Then, next up we will do our functional residual capacity. Okay, that is going to be going, I always bring this onto the wrong line. It's this tidal volume here. So that's going to be going from the bottom of the tidal volume all the way down to the base. And this is going to be the functional residual capacity. Just looking at it, what does that look like it covers? It's going to be the residual plus the amount of air you can exhale after a tidal volume, after a tidal exhale. Or you could look at it the opposite direction. It just depends on which way you're pushing it. So this is going to be the FRC, 2,300 milliliters. Okay. This is the volume of air remaining in the lungs following a tidal expiration. So you're sitting here, you breathe out normally. After you breathe out normally, how much air is still in the lungs? Exactly. And that is going to be calculated by, so FRC is equal to, I'll zoom in on this because I'm writing it small, ERV plus the RV. So the expiratory reserve plus the residual volume will be there. Okay. One more. That's good? Okay, last one. This one's just going to stack right on top of that one and go to the top. And this is called the inspiratory capacity. This is going to be to what capacity are you able to be inspired to do something? No. Power jokes never work. Okay. Anyway, so the inspiratory capacity, this is going to be IC. It is 3,500 milliliters. Just looking at it, you could probably figure out what it's going to be looking at. So you take a normal tidal expiration, and then you breathe as much air as you can on top of that. Right. So this is going to be the volume able to be inspired following a tidal expiration. And the way that we get this, so IC, this is going to be the tidal volume, so TV, plus the inspiratory reserve, so IRV. And that gets you to the final capacity. So again, these are values that can be measured in individuals through a process called spirometry. They're breathing into a instrument called a spirometer. We'll look at that tomorrow. And they end up cranking out one of these graphs with values, and then we can compare their results to standardized results and get a better idea as to how well their lungs are functioning and also what's wrong with them. If someone has a normal inspiratory reserve, but they have a lowered expiratory reserve, then what that means is they were able to bring in more air than they can get out. And that's kind of a hallmark of COPD, for instance. Yes?